Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 21 of the Audible Farm podcast. This week I'm sitting down with Steve Curry. He's a bassist, guitarist. He builds boutique amps. He's really all around a really interesting guy. Really glad I got to sit down with him and talk to him for a while. He's the bassist in the Nedd Freeley Funn Band. He has played guitar in Static, a handful of other bands. He's had quite an interesting history. We get down to it, and we kind of just jog back and forth through the podcast, through all of his different bands. We might not even got to them all. I'm not sure. I really never talked to him this much in depth. I've met him very sparsely up until now, but it was great to sit down and talk with him. The podcast is great. I'm kind of getting it in under the wire here. I'm editing it last minute right before I upload it. So if I don't upload it on time, I'm sorry, but I'll get it out as soon as possible. So thanks everybody for listening. This is episode number 21 with Steve Curry.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
All right, how's that?
Oh, that's great. Okay. So sitting down today, Steve Curry. We had played a show together like 10 or 12 years ago. It probably was like 2006, maybe. And that was the first time I ever saw you play in any band at all. And I'm not 100% sure I've seen you actually play since then. But you came up, I believe, in the Scott Dahl interview that I did, and maybe in a couple others. So what have you been up to lately as far as bands-wise?
Nedd Freeley
Yep.
Funn Band.
There you go.
Got asked to sit with them. Donnie Wagner likes to go down south.
Yeah. So
And for 2-3 months, and it started out I was going to fill in for him, and then it just kind of, okay, well, stick around.
yeah, okay. So yeah, you kind of just jumped in to fill in for somebody and ended up sticking around.
Yeah, I guess it didn't. They needed a bass player, and I said, well, yeah, I could do that. I got a bass, and I got a bass amp, and so I did. Well, all of a sudden, the bass got to be kind of fun.
Yeah, I recall you playing guitar when I was younger. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I still do, and
Yeah.
I play with maybe a dozen songs with Ned. I do guitar. Most of it's bass.
Cool. Oh, that's cool.
Depends on the show.
Do you have a preference to one or the other?
Well, the bass all of a sudden, I don't know. I had an old fiddle player tell me a long time ago. He says there's a lot of damn guitar players in this world. He says you need to learn how to do something else
Yeah.
if you want to play.
Yeah.
And I found out, well, as a bass player, all of a sudden, yeah, I've got more interest, and not that I'm interested in playing any weekend but yeah.
Yeah.
And it's for some reason it was just something new,
Yeah.
something different to learn.
I kind of get you there. As of recently, I've started learning the drums. I bought a drum set, and I'm like,
Okay.
oh man, my intro's playing on here. All right, so yeah, I just started playing the drums, and the crazy thing about that is like I'm having a lot more fun playing the drums than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe it just comes to the fact where I get to like relearn an instrument again from scratch, and the drums are nothing like any other stringed instrument, so it's completely different. And I'm no like John Bonham or anything, but like I just like to play, and I think
Well, that's just it. And I discovered you're playing lead guitar all the time when you're playing bass.
yeah,
When you think about it,
yeah,
you're carrying a line, and I find it's to have that. What do you want to say that the I don't know. It's just it's what drives the whole song, I think. And
Yeah.
a good bass line makes a song, and I work at that, and it's been kind of fun. And
Yeah.
like I said, you're playing lead guitar all
Yeah.
the time.
Did it take you a while? Do you like do walking bass lines and things like that, or
No, I can, but I just like I'll pick up the Motown records,
Okay.
and I like those bass lines. It's just that bass lines out of the 70s and 60s,
Mhm.
There's some interesting stuff back then, it's not just 2 beats to the bar or 4 beats to the bar. There's a
Exactly.
little they syncopated a little bit. They got the little stutters. Yeah,
Mhm.
So it's interesting and yeah, it was that first couple months I sat here in this room, brought up YouTube and just started playing along and I try to, we pick a song and I try to follow that bass line. That's what drives the song. That's what made the songs popular
Yeah.
and that's is you can get it close. Why people recognize it right off the bat.
Yeah.
So
I do feel like that is one of the things where you can cheat on the bass a lot easier if you want to and just play like you said, you play quarter notes the whole way through it, and
Yep.
you can get through it. But if you're playing the actual bass line from a song, people instantly know what it is.
Yep.
And
And it's those bass riffs that I think there's opening guitar riffs, but there's also that bass riff that just makes that song go.
oh yeah, totally.
And
I guess from my experience, just dealing with bass players, seeing them around, and even me playing it, I'm not a good bass player. I can play guitar decent. I cannot play bass as well as I just think it's more difficult to play the bass well than it is to play the guitar well. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it is. For me, I wish they had longer fingers because the long scale bass, it'd make it easier. So and I got a lot of hand movement, but to order to nail those notes nice and clean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I discovered too, you when you miss them, that you just lost the whole drive to the song when you flub a bunch of notes on your, and it's just like guitar or anything else. It takes practice to get
Yeah.
it cleaned up, get it to work. The other thing is too is you're right in the drummer's back pocket, man. You're the
Yep.
whole rhythm section, the bass and the drum. So and I kind of like doing that. I like following different drummers.
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of opportunity to do that. I work with Scott all the time. I've played with Scott Dahl since he was probably 14 years old.
Oh, that's cool.
So
I finally got a chance to jam with him at a couple jam nights not too long ago.
Yeah.
Dude's awesome. I like hanging out with him. It always seems really positive about
yeah,
what's going on.
He's played with a lot of musicians and he enjoys doing it, and that's good. And he's gotten better and better and better. As a kid, he didn't do too bad. Of course, we did a lot of country stuff back then, and we're just happy as heck to have him play. You know? And he's I can tell he's played a lot.
Oh yeah,
because when you play a lot, you just get better.
you keep getting better and
right.
better and better.
That's right.
And I mean, I'm sure even back then or now or whenever, there's not a tall list of drummers in existence. Let's put it this way: like I can drum, but if you want me to do anything past like an AC/DC, I got nothing, absolutely nothing. Don't ask me to do long fills, no nothing. And I mean, it's just one of those things. Sometimes you go to those jam nights and there's a handful of drummers in the building. You're like, where all you guys come from? It seems like there's never enough of you around. And then you go to a jam night, and there's 4 or 5 of them there, and they're all awesome.
Yeah, and I can remember. I don't know. We were always looking for a drummer.
Yep.
Always looking for a drummer.
Yep.
And we tried out several, and several worked, and several didn't work.
Yep.
And it's just how everybody fits together.
That's a big part of it, because sometimes you can even like put together what you think is going to be an absolute slayer of a group. This guy's so awesome at this guy's so awesome at this, and it seems like they're almost not working with each other as well as they could. Sometimes it doesn't work out so well.
That's right.
And it's maybe some of it comes down to the fact that the bassist and the drummer kind of have to be on the same page almost. And this isn't anything against any bassist or any drummer out there in any way, shape, or form, but it's just it takes that meshing of the right people to get it kind of going.
Yeah, and I played a lot of jams, and some of them are fantastic, and it's just because you got the right mix of guys, and then the next night you got a mess.
Yep. Yeah.
And I've been involved in both, so it's fine. The jam, that's what they are. They're jams. So
yep.
But
well, I've been lucky enough with my jams. Like I played I did the one with Scott Dahl at the Red Lantern in Bode, up northern Iowa there. I did the Patty's Pub one with Jeremy Ober, and I mean he's fantastic. So that was a heck of a good time. I did one with Clint Riedel at man, I'm gonna forget the name of this. It's gonna bother me. The Junkyard Bar and Grill.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's
Yeah.
in was that Barnum? No, that's
Yeah, I think it
yeah,
is, isn't
yeah,
it?
there we
It's
go. All
Barnum.
right. So yeah, I went out there and hung out there a couple times too. And it's just crazy to I was always too self-conscious to go out and do this stuff cuz I mean, believe it or not, when I was younger and I was playing, I thought I had, the cat by the tail. I thought I knew what I was doing, and then we ended up playing that show with you guys. And I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal or anything, but when I'm
Well,
18 years old and you show up and these guys actually know how to play their instruments, and it's like, holy cow, these guys are actually pretty good, So it gives you something to strive for.
well, and you talk about that show, and it was the band Static, and it was a classmate of mine, Rick Weiss, and we had a band when we were in high school. I don't know, we were seniors, gonna be seniors, our summer before senior year, and it was Rick Weiss, and there's Mike Twilliger, and Mark Egrich, and Jay Hall, and myself. Somewhere I've got a picture. You can see I've got several pictures of what I played with different bands. I don't think I've got that picture around. Anyway, we used to practice in a chicken shed out in a farm
Oh, cool.
that I lived at, and we'd cleaned it all up, and we painted it, and we used to play we'd even gone so far as we made a recording. Had a bunch of photos taken. We had a guy come out, we did a photo shoot, and we lined up a agent, this Maury Dre out of Omaha, and there was another agent in Denison, Iowa.
Uh-huh.
And they would get you bookings. Of course, they take their 10%.
Yep.
But they'd get you bookings, and it was all the high school dances is what it was.
Oh, that's
all
cool.
over the state. And the Lazy River Band, I think they had the same agent. And they had already been doing it for a couple of years. We thought that'd be cool. We ought to try it too. Well, we probably had 25, 30 songs worked up. And it was, at that time, this was like 71 or 2.
Oh, sweet. So
So you're looking at, ZZ Top. I don't even know if they had their first album out by then. So
yeah, I'm not even sure. It would have been.
ZZ Top came out with Tres Hombres, I think, in '73.
I thought I was going to say 73 was my thought.
Anyway, so this was summer of '72, I believe. So it was a lot of Eric Clapton and Cream, and there was Mountain,
Oh, yeah.
Mississippi Queen, man.
Yep.
That come out in '70 or '71. So we'd work, and maybe even some Alice Cooper, some Steppenwolf.
Oh, nice. So you guys were pretty heavy for the time.
Well, yeah, we liked playing all that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I mean, I get it. You're young and you're full of the angst, and that's just kind of how it ends up going.
Well, we weren't a horn band, we were Chicago.
Yeah.
It was popular at that time, but we weren't a horn playing band. That we weren't even interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was mostly Steppenwolf, Cream, Mountain, Hendrix.
Hendrix. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. What were some of the other bands? I don't know. I had a song list that I had. I don't know what I did with it. That I had with Static. I just found it the other day. But we, like I said, I played with Rick, and about it was a class reunion, probably my 20-year class reunion, which had been '93.
Yeah.
We kind of hooked up, and he said, "Well, I got this studio." He said, "Why don't you come on down and we'll jam a little bit?" And so I looked him up and went down. Well, then we couldn't. The other guys weren't interested, and I don't even know for sure where Jay Hall's at. To tell you the truth, Mike Twilliger lives here in town, and Mark Egrich, not too sure where he's at.
So you said 73 was your 20-year class reunion, and you were
been 93.
93. So 70. You were saying like 71 and 2. You were playing music, and you were still in high school, and you were doing all this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean,
well, I was, but we never got any farther than the shed, and never got any farther than that.
yeah.
And Rick went on. I think the deal was, and he went on to play with another band, is what he did. And to this day, I don't know why he stayed in school, but he did. Well, he was extremely smart, and I'm sure his Dad would have not liked it, but
Yeah.
he'd joined another band, and as soon as he graduated high school, man, they hit the road and they were traveling all over the Western. He was in North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa,
Oh, it's crazy
Colorado.
cool.
And they had an agent, and they were called Jebediah Stone.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard that name before. As a matter
Yep.
of fact,
And he's got them back together too.
that's
So,
probably why I've heard of it.
I think they played in Badger not too long ago.
That sounds really familiar. Oh man.
Maybe about a month ago, I think. So
Yeah.
he went a different direction and just kind of fell apart. I wanted to buy a car, and I didn't want to spend money on sound equipment. And and the other guys didn't want to spend any money either, and that's what we needed. We needed a PA. We were short that, and
Yep.
Rick decided to go somewhere else, and that's fine. But like I said, it was 20 years later we hooked up, and I don't know, we played up until about 5 years ago. So, and we used to play 2-3 gigs a year.
Yeah. Just pick the ones you want to play and play them, or
But now we played the Rock and Picnic maybe I don't know 3 times.
cool.
And we played a couple of their winter shows.
Oh, nice.
And then we had this rock and roll reunion with the Lazy River Band. And that was, like you said, that was probably 90 or 2000 or
2005 or 6.
2005.
It would have been about 2005 would be my guess. Either that or 2006. But yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to say, was it that late? I've got pitch. I think we started having those reunions. We started like 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Artie Strutzenberg called me up and he says, we're going to have a little jam session down at the Eagles Club. And he said, why don't you come on down?
That down in Fort Dodge?
No, it was here in Humboldt.
Here in Humboldt?
It was where the Rustics is now.
Oh, cool. Cool.
And it was the Eagles Club at that time, or I don't know, it kind of changed hands 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it got really, it'd be something for 1 year. And
it was
then
Mrs. G's.
That's what I remembered as a kid.
Mrs. G's, and then the Eagles, and then, or maybe it was the Eagles, Mrs. G's, or whatever.
Yep.
But it Artie called right out of the blue, and, I had sound equipment at that time. And I just thought, he just wanted me to bring, and that was fine. I'd bring it down. And he says, we're going to have this little jam. I'm bringing up some guys from Des Moines. And he said, I'm bringing some of the guys from the Lazy River Band. I think Randy Burka was back, and John Callahan was there.
Uh-huh.
And Fluky, Mark Flanagan from Adele showed up too.
Nice.
And then Artie brought Jimmy the Midnight Cowboy. He was on the Iowa Blues Hall of Fame. Jimmy, I can't think of his last name. And then there's a couple other players from Des Moines too, a harp player. And what a blast. And that place was packed.
Oh, man.
And so we got to do this again next year. Well, then he got the Lazy River Band all back together, got them all back.
Yep.
And so they played, and we packed the place again, So, So and Rick came up to play that second year because the band Gunshaw, and Rick had played with the band Gunshaw for a while. And Gunshaw had got together and played that night too. It was kind of a band reunion type thing.
Uh-huh.
So, but I'm kind of rambling a lot.
Oh.
I'm dancing around all over. I'm going year to year. Decade
that's great.
to decade. So
that's great. So let's try and fill in the gaps. Like you played how long with Static?
I think it was 94 up until last, probably 4 or 5 years ago, 2013, 14.
Yeah. All right. So I must have came in somewhere close to the end when I saw you guys play. Because that would have been that.
Well, we played
that Rock and Reunion show.
We played at Rock and I think the last gig we did was at. We ended the night. I don't remember what year it was. 2014, I think. Was on the last one we did.
Yeah, it would have been earlier than 2016 because that was the one I played on. That was the first one I stayed for the entirety of the show.
Okay, there was 1 year we didn't. I don't remember. We played this.
You know, someday I hope to have the same issue you do, where I've played
You
so many
forgot.
shows that I'm just gonna be like, I don't remember which one that was.
We played 3 times out at. I played with Static 3 times out at the park. We played 2 evenings, one at the Rustics and one up at the VFW winter shows.
Yeah.
One of them, the one band had a band member die, and they couldn't make it
Oh man.
within that a few days, and they called us up
Oh man.
just out of the, could you guys maybe, we're looking for a band, and so we felt we took it that night.
Uh huh.
So yeah, we did, and I think I played Nedd Freeley one Saturday night at the park too. The pre-show, the night before the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
big thing.
Those are always fun because they always have like a grill out or something out there going
Yeah.
on. Fish fry or something, crab boil, or
Yeah.
there's always something going on.
So yeah, we played there quite a bit, and I over the years I played a lot of venues,
Yeah, I bet.
a lot of them not here anymore. None
Yeah.
of them.
Well,
Played Star Ballroom in Dakota City, which is now Melinda's dance studio.
yep.
Rosie's DMT up at Rolfe, played up there.
I don't even know what that is.
Hell, it was a school out north of Rolfe, maybe 7-8 miles.
Yeah.
And it was Des Moines Township School is what that DMT stood for. But
Oh,
a guy bought it and turned the gymnasium into a bar/dance hall.
genius. I mean, it's
And it was, I don't know, it was probably in operation probably 10 years, I suppose. But we played up there maybe 10 dozen times. Played up at the Sweetwater Hotel up in Livermore. That burned to the ground.
I was gonna say I don't know. I don't remember a motel in Livermore.
It was Sweetwater Hotel or Diamond Lils. Played there several times.
You were saying, I mean, when you first started playing, you said you started playing like school dances and things like that, and that seems to be something that, I mean, obviously DJs are easier to get and such, but it doesn't seem like that's a thing that anybody does anymore.
No, and it's kind of sad, but that's what you had for your dances when I was in high school.
Yep.
You hired bands, and there was several of them around.
Uh-huh.
Some of them were, well, there's the Westminsters out of Fort Dodge. There was, oh gosh, what was it? There was a band from Sioux Falls. Man, they were good. There was a 3-piece band. I remember them yet. I can't think. Was it Blueberry Buckle or something crazy? Them guys were good. And then there was a couple horn bands I know would show up for dances. And
That was another thing I was going to ask you. You were talking how you guys weren't a horn band. Were there a bunch around, or was that
not really?
Not really.
There was if a band had horns, that was odd because it was just everybody wanted to be the guitar player back then.
Yep.
And that's what basically. Other than Chicago, that was it.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the Motown stuff had some horns in it, but what we were listening to, not a lot. The Beatles kind of went and did, I don't know, they had horn strings and everything else, and that's what everybody kind of couldn't play their stuff anymore because it was hard.
Yeah.
Their later stuff, once they got into the Rubber Soul and their White Album, and you got the Abbey Road. They had strings and horns and gosh knows what they had.
Yeah, you almost need a whole symphony in order to recreate it.
Yeah, and so it was hard to play into that music and do it well. And that was the whole idea, is how close you could sound. Get that sound just like them. That's what everybody would. That's how you get hired back.
Yeah. Yep.
It wasn't so much being original, it was how well you sound like the band you hear on the radio.
Exactly.
That's what everybody was looking for. So
yeah, I one of the first things I remember, I've taken a lot of advice from people when I first started playing guitar, and even when I recently started playing again and going out and playing shows. One of the oddest pieces of advice that I kind of think rings true that I got when I was younger was don't play a Beatles song, because there's a pretty good chance you won't be able to recreate it well enough. And like you said, the later stuff you can't even attempt it. Like you'd need synthesizers and the whole nine yards to even come close these days.
Well, I had a sitar. What the heck is that? Some Indian guru there was playing this, and it was like, how do you recreate that? You couldn't.
Exactly. So. Yeah, especially if everybody's just got like a Fender amp and a Fender guitar. It's like you can't make those noises with this thing. I mean, nowadays everyone's got stomp boxes and everything else. You can digitize stuff and send it through. And
I was watching. They just had the anniversary of the Beatles rooftop, their last concert. And it was. They had Billy Preston on the keyboard, and of course the 4 original Beatles, and they did, I don't know, what was it, 8 or 9 songs. And they just sitting there with a Fender Twin. They had a Fender Bassman amp.
Yeah.
And like they said, no pedal boards. They were playing live. Them guys were good.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they got famous. Those guys were good.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit to you and everyone else that's listening, I guess, that I'm not really a big Beatles fan. But I'm not going to tell you they're not good. Like, I mean,
it's just now, that was a comment, it was a YouTube video or something, or maybe it was something I caught. But you got the guys with all the comments, and the guy says, look at that. There's no pedals. There isn't a pedal on the ground,
Yeah.
And they're just plugged with they got a guitar and a Fender Twin, and they're just playing this music. And, and that basically, their last album, they did Get Back, and what was it? There was maybe 8 or 9 songs that they did. And it was cold. They were wearing coats, and, it makes you wonder how do they keep that stuff in tune? But they sounded pretty dang good up on that rooftop.
That's crazy. Do you use many pedals, I guess? Like,
my pedal board I brought back, I don't remember what, I just brought it back from our rehearsal shed. I want to redo it, but all I got is a blues driver that's been modified.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wah-wah pedal on it. I don't use it with Nedd Freeley, so I don't even put it on the board. And I've got a tuner, and I got an amp switch. I got I like to run small amps, so I'll run 2 or 3 small 12, 15 watt home build amps, and either run them all or pick the one I like.
Yep. We need to dog ear that or start talking about that soon, because that's something that I like. I knew you did a little bit of that stuff, but then it was like the very first of the year you posted like, this is what I'm doing today, and it was you rebuilding an amp, and not that I Facebook creeped you or anything, but then I was like, holy cow, he's like rebuilding old radios or just fixing up like stuff that is considered junk to some people, and it's like you just bust out a schematic and we're like, well, let's fix this thing and see what happens.
Well, not always successful in a lot of this junk that I buy or I try to create.
Maybe that's my term for it. I'm sorry to say that.
No, and my wife calls it junk, and it's junk too. But it's just a challenge. It's something, something that I like to do, and I'm not that sharp on it, but I'm getting better. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So,
you think let's sidetrack a weird bit here and get into some opinion talk. Like, I feel that there's not too many people willing to like dive into that kind of stuff anymore. And I mean, I can like rewire a guitar up and down, left and right. But if you like break out a PCB and are just like, what's wrong with this? I don't know. Like, I don't know if I can tell you.
I'm more into tubes. When you get into the transistor, no. The microprocessor based stuff, no.
Yeah.
No. Just, that. The tubes are, it's point to point. This wire goes from here to this device and out of this device and back in.
Yep.
And, you got a resistor, you got a cap, you got maybe a transformer or 2 in there, and you got some tubes that do their amplification.
Yeah.
And a transistor is basically the same thing. It just takes that and you amplifies it. Takes the signal and amplifies it.
Yep.
More or less.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like you work with electricity in your day job, and I'm sure that you went to school for this, correct?
No,
you didn't even go to school for electricity.
No, actually, I went to tech school to be an auto mechanic.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd you get involved? It seems like you're such a pro at this. How did you get involved doing this?
Well, you had automotive electric,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know,
Yep. Yep.
and I kind of got piqued my interest in that. And there was always a desire, there was always auto electrical problems forever.
Yep.
And if you got good at it, people would drive a long ways if you could solve their problems.
Yeah. I will speak for that from the heart.
And so I tried to get good at it. Well, then I got a job with Corn Belt,
Uh-huh.
and I worked out at the power plant they didn't hire me for my good looks or sweet charm. They hired me because I knew how to fix stuff.
Yeah.
And that's all there was to it. I mean, that was it, and that's where I've been ever since. It's been 44 years now. I went to night classes on basic electronics. I took these down at Iowa Central at Fort Dodge. I took,
cool.
I don't know, 5 or 6 30-hour courses on digital electronics, fiber optics. I took a night course on fiber optics
That's cool.
and basic electronics. So,
Yeah, I just recently went back to school, and I just went through Iowa Central and got an accounting
okay, good,
there,
cool, that's great.
but I had debated going into electricity because I had just started like rewiring guitars, and like I'd buy a pedal where somebody's like, "Oh, the switch doesn't work on it." Well, I can fix a switch, like hit up the company, "Hey, send me a switch." "Oh, it's going to cost 90 cents plus 60 to ship it." Sure. You put it in there, and it works. So I mean, it's not too much rocket science. Learning how to solder is pretty much the hardest part of the whole entire thing.
Well, accounting is a good field to get into. So
Yeah.
you probably made a good choice there. Not saying it there, but for me it's just a hobby.
Yeah. I certainly wish I knew more about it. Is there something that got you into like fixing up old radios and things like that, or you see them at sales and they just kind of throw them all in a box? It's like a buck
I
for
don't know.
these.
I don't know how that happened. It started with, I'm looking here. I just found a box of stuff upstairs, and I had a Fender Twin in 19, and it quit. Well, here I had H.E. Halverson Electronics in Fort Dodge, Iowa. This was in '85. He repaired my Fender Twin amp.
Oh, nice.
Well, I just repaired that same amp. In fact, maybe that picture you were talking about that I had posted in Facebook that I was working on.
Yeah.
I'd sold that Twin to this guitar player it's in Nedd Freeley, and it was just one of those amps that I didn't use anymore, and they had an issue, and I said, yeah, I can fix it. Well, and I did, and now all of a sudden I draw this up, and I thought, I paid this guy, what was it, $61 back in 1985. I had a bad tube and a bad resistor.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, that was another thing. Was like, I had somebody recently ask me like, "Oh, I'm going to put new tubes in my amp. Should I bias it?" "Absolutely." And they're like, "Well, where should I do that?" And I'm like, "Well, that's the thing that might be kind of tough, because someplace you might go might be $100, someplace might be 20. It just depends on who you hit up and what." And I had suggested going to shops and seeing who they go through, because not every shop has an amp technician. Because some of those places, they'll just send it out and then they'll just tack 20% onto whoever they sent it out to. And that's one reason I was always just mystified by like how all these amps work, and like the bigger they get, the crazier it just seems. Like, this has got 8 tubes in it, and I don't know. Obviously there's power tubes and preamp tubes. And
Well, it's a lot of it. I mean, what I want to say, it's the same principle. There's maybe they can do something with the tone controls.
Yeah.
And they'll change those around. They can add more control over a different frequency range. But it's all the same. You just got a signal that comes out of that guitar, and you got that string that passes over that pole piece, and it creates a very small voltage, and it just comes out that cord and into your amp, and it starts going through that chain. They just keep stepping the signal.
That's
loud,
Yeah. I mean, when you explain it like that, it's like, well, it's simple, but when you open it up and you see all the parts in there, to me, it's just a bunch of foreign stuff inside of there.
Well, it's just, but once you look at the schematics and you kind of start to follow it, when the signal starts here, and and you say, well, it's got to go through here, and it comes out, and they need to filter out, part of that signal, they carry it on a DC, and they block the DC, so they alternating, your music passes through,
Yep.
and then but the DC carries it into the next device, and yeah, it
That's wild. That's all. That's just. It's like mystical to me. I wish I knew more about it. I wish there was an easy way I could just sit down with you in an afternoon
well,
and have
it
you explain it.
and I probably wouldn't be very good on the theory part, and I wished I was better at explaining it. And I kind of it's hard to grasp. There's an art.
Yeah,
I've got a oscope.
that's awesome.
You can spend
Oscilloscope. Yeah.
Yes, you can spend hours. You need to spend hours and hours and hours looking at them things to get really good at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we used to use them on cars, and you'd hook it up and you can see all this squiggly line go across there, and well, this means it's doing this. Voltage is here, and it's here, and it's here, and it's here, and it should look like this, and it should look like this, and it should like this. Well, what if it don't look like that? What does that mean?
Yeah,
And that's what, and so now you got to understand that. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. Have you ever thought about like completely building your own amps? Like
Yeah, you're sitting in amongst them.
Oh, sweet. So you built all these yourself?
Yeah.
From scratch?
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's wild. Is that like a suitcase amp back there? What is that thing?
It was a sewing machine case.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just cut an opening and put a 10-inch speaker in it. It's about a 12, 15 watt amp.
That is so cool.
I'm not really happy with the sound of it. It looks cool, but it's not very sturdy.
Yeah.
And I got the speakers mounted on a piece of plywood in there, but it gets kind of buzzy. You get loud, and it's too much amp for that case.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it have something to do with the housing on it?
Yeah.
Not the amp, just the housing part.
Yeah,
No?
I think so. Artie Dean was back in town, and I use that. And he always wants me to bring that. That's it's a copy of a Vibratone, and it's a Leslie.
Oh,
It's
cool.
got the rotating
speaker in there.
rotating speaker in it.
Nice.
And he always wants me to bring that. He wants that warble going all the time
Yep.
in the bag. So I use that suitcase amp and the Vibratone.
Dude, that's so neat. I still remember the first time somebody's like, "Oh, they got a rotating speaker in here," and the first time I had thought about it was I had bought it was either a delay pedal or a reverb pedal, but it had a makeshift rotary speaker thing in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What is this all about?" So you go look it up online, and you're like, "Somebody made a speaker that spins around in a circle to actually create that sound instead of just changing the way that the signal goes through." Something that I guess back then maybe somebody didn't know how to do it with digital technology or whatever.
No,
whatever.
Well, like a Leslie, I can't even remember. That was the guy's name. He got the patent on it, and that's why his name was Leslie,
Yep.
last name, and that's how it got named the Leslie. Well, they used him on organs.
Oh, okay.
They had the Leslie speaker, and they had the old Hammond organ, and you'd buy the Leslie speaker as a add-on.
Uh-huh.
Where a lot of the time the organs didn't have amplifications in them, so you need to plug into separate. Well, then they had the Leslie amp. And
Yep.
They had tube amp that was probably 40 to 80 watts. There was different, and they had two horns. They had a horn on top that rotated one way, and then they had a drum, and that's what that is. It's just a rotating drum, and the speaker fires into the center of this drum, and it's got a scoop, and it just the speaker fires into the scoop, and this drum just turns. And so it's a scoop, and it.
Okay, that's really
what
cool.
creates the sound. The speaker doesn't rotate; it just
Something rotates pretty much in front of it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Holy cow. I guess I never knew that.
And that's the Leslie speaker they use in the organs. Like I said, they had their drum, and they had like a 12-inch, I don't know, Jensen speaker that fired into that drum, and it rotated one way, and then the horn at the top rotated a different way.
Yeah.
And they had a slow speed and they had a fast speed.
Okay.
So they'd slow down and speed up, and you'll hear that. And I've got that on this too. I've got a high-low speed on it.
Oh, it's neat. Did you make the guts for that all yourself? I guess, like the speaker and the drum and everything.
I was picking up organs, and that's where I get my stuff for building my amps. I just find all these old organs that are sitting out on pickup day, and
Yeah.
or I look at Craigslist or even on the Facebook sites for sale sites, and they've got come get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many of those out there.
So I get it in the back of my truck and drag it home, and I take all the guts out that I want.
That's
And
wild.
the rest of it I just put in the dumpster. I'll save some. I even save some of the wood. I don't know. I hear this guitar amp. That was a church speaker,
Oh, cool.
and I just built a little. It's a little 5 watt, like a Champ
Uh-huh.
amp, and it had a 12-inch Jensen speaker in it. And like I said, it was just a speaker in a church.
That's cool.
So
did you make the cover on that thing yourself?
No, that's M. I imagine it was a Methodist church, or you could turn it. It's square, so you could turn it, and it could be an E, or it could be a W, or
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes me think about
I want to say it might have come out of the Methodist church in Humboldt, the old Methodist church.
Old Methodist Church. Near the old football field, is that where?
No, it would have been where the Methodist church. Well, close to where it's at Methodist church in Humboldt is now.
I guess I didn't know there was another
But
one up there.
I'm just guessing. I bought it at an auction sale. And I bought that and a whole sack of vacuum tubes.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And that's where I get a lot of my stuff. I'll pick it up. I'll see stuff like that at auction sales.
Well, one man's junk, I mean, it's another man's treasure.
And that's where I picked up a few organs, was at an auction sale.
Do you play the organ at all?
No.
No?
I'm not. I used to be better. I never was. I'm not even self-taught. I maybe can do 2 fingers, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I was trying to learn some vocal parts. So the best way I know to do it is to play it on a keyboard, a piano.
Yep.
And if you got harmonies, and then you play, if you got 2, right, you play one at a time, and the singer just learns that, we were working on one with Nedd, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna, holy cow. I tried to put 3 parts together, and probably for 2 bars. I worked and worked and worked and worked on that for hours. I never did get it so I could play it good.
Yeah.
A 3-part, 3-note progression. So
It's not easy. I tried playing piano. My sister played growing up, and it just wowed me. It's never something I was very good at or something I could do. But ironically, when I took music theory classes, I learned all of it on a piano because it just seemed to be the easiest thing to translate.
yeah.
And then it was just like, well, now how do I put all this information into a guitar? So I had to try and relearn.
Teach yourself.
Yeah.
Or,
Figure out where the new patterns were going to be, I guess would be a good way to explain it.
I took a music theory class when I was in high school. It was something that they offered there here in Humboldt, and it was the band instructor and the vocal choir director taught it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I liked listening to all the old, it was Tchaikovsky, the Beethoven's.
Yep.
You'd listen, and then it come to the composing. Well, there's, when it come to the composing part, it was like, that's a lot of, what I want to say, that was complicated.
Yeah.
There's there was things that you had to follow, and
yeah, there was certain things you couldn't step too many notes at once, otherwise it would sound bad. But if you're only moving if you only need to move 2 notes, then you don't need to just do quarter note, because that's boring. So sometimes you overshoot and come back, and there's
and it was like they had rules. Well, why can't you break the rules? That's what there's certain things. Well, they said, well, you can't do that, and I said, well, why not?
Yeah. I had somebody try to explain it to me once that said music theory was created to explain why the people that are making music at the time are making music, because when they started having some of the first basic music theory, people hadn't explored so much music.
Yeah.
It wasn't as in depth as it could have been. People hadn't tried to push the limits of it as much as they did, other than I guess maybe having an orchestra here or there or whatever. There's obviously some great composers throughout time, but
well, I could see what they were after. If you're doing composing, that I can understand it, but I always, well, I'm going to write a song. I'm going to compose a song. I says, well, they said you can't do that. Well, I didn't know why. Well, I couldn't take it home and put it on the piano. Well, then when they tried to play it, well, then I could kind of understand it once you heard it.
Yep.
But when you're writing the notes down on that,
Yeah, it looks good on the paper because it seems to follow the way it should. It
yep.
looks like it looks good. That's actually a really good example because it was the same way because we would have to write stuff and then we would give it to one of our teachers and they would play it for us and they'd play it in front of everybody. I mean, there was only 4 people
yeah.
in the class, in my class, but it was still like, you're gonna be pretty embarrassed if the stuff especially if you hit like the wrong note or something. Like you put the wrong note in there and the teacher's just gonna play it anyways because you wrote it like that. So.
Because I can remember I composed something, and I don't know, it was probably 8 or 12 bars, and it was for our grade, and my mom played piano, and I think we had a piano at home. Well, she couldn't make anything out of it. It'd been years since she'd sat down on a piano,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a piano at home, and all it was a piece of furniture, so we never even looked at it.
Yeah.
But so I take it to school, and I think I'm gonna ace this thing. Well, it sounded like mud. It just, and I thought on paper it looked great.
Yep.
And he says, well, you didn't. Well, yeah. So.
Yeah, it's wild that some people can actually just sit down with a piece of paper and some staff lines and write stuff, and they know what it sounds like
What
and
it's
know
gonna
how
be like.
Yeah, and they already know how good it's going to be.
Yeah, I thought I did in my head. I thought it was, it wasn't, and I got a C. It was probably worth a C. Probably wasn't even worth that, but it was, like I say, when somebody tried to play it, and I could understand why they had certain rules. But then again, I thought, well, why? It's like, how are you gonna decide? Find out how well it sounds, or if you don't break the rules. That's what guys do now. I mean, they break rules.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, tritones would be the big one. Tritones would definitely be the big one that I would point to, which would be like splitting your 4th and 5th. I don't know how much you think of like.
I can kind of remember that. Yeah.
So it doesn't sound good, like almost any way you play it. But I recall there being a composer that made a piece that used that as the focal point, and had you not been told that, you wouldn't have even known. But it sounds so wretched if you just try and play it like next to each other normally. And I don't know, Victor Wooten plays bass. I don't know if you know Victor Wooten. He's a bass player. He's pretty famous, but I don't know, he's played in a handful of bands. I think he's anyways, he's really, really good at bass, and he had kind of talked about that, where like if you play a C and a C sharp, they don't sound very good when you play them directly next to each other, but if you put them in the context of a song, they can sound good.
Yeah.
So I guess it all kind of does matter how you apply it, and maybe that just comes back to a little more exposure on the topic. Maybe you.
Some of it's timing. You can put those two notes together, but it's it's like I say, I never got very deep into theory, and that was 45 years ago when I took that.
So you would probably say that theory did not like push you into being the guitarist you are today, or do you think it did?
No. I don't know what pushed me. I just like doing it. I like playing.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was easy.
Yeah.
I started, I think I was 10 years old. I got a guitar for Christmas, and Mom found a teacher, a guy that would give me lessons. Kent Haynes was his name. And I took lessons from Kent probably about 6 months. Well, by then, we pretty much knew what he knew.
Yeah.
And he basically taught us chords. And then Kent graduated from high school, and got into the summer. And he decided to be a barber or something, and he left. And then so he still went out to his mom's house. I remember that. And a guy from Fort Dodge came up and gave lessons. Well, then we were learning the notes on the guitar. Well, I just got absolutely bored to death of that. I didn't care where the C was or the A was, or and reading the music. I had to do that music class in school. I wasn't interested in that either.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So now you're just trying. Now someone's trying to apply it to a guitar, and it's making the guitar.
Now I
less.
wished I'd stayed with it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I had to do it the hard way. I still don't know where I could, really don't know where every note is up and down that neck.
Yeah.
I know where I need to be.
Yeah. What
And-
What do you think you attribute to that? Is it just not necessarily learning the pattern, but kind of like
It was a pattern.
that was the first thing I started noticing was even like
It's patterns.
even the most intricate metal dude, it's just like you're literally just playing a pentatonic scale in a weird pattern super fast. That's all you're doing. It's nothing. You're not
Scales.
Yeah,
Yeah, them guys, a lot of the guys that you hear, it's just scales, and they just kind of,
Yep.
you go to Guitar Center, and there's somebody just playing the daylights out of a scale, you know, like,
just ripping up arpeggios left and right.
okay.
Yep. And I mean, it's kind of fun when you start to like think about that, like oh, sweep picking sounds so crazy. Well, it's just one note at a time, and you're playing a bar chord really high up on your neck for the most part. That's it. And then like it's just like, oh man. Then it just takes the practice, which is the thing that most people don't do because I can't sweep pick. But it's kind of fun to watch people do it.
Yeah. I need to get back to it, but I used to do a lot of finger picking,
That's always marveled me.
and I did it with finger picks and a thumb pick. Well, then I got away from that and just used my fingers.
Yep.
And I used to do a lot of it. Boy, I'm not very good at it anymore. I used to do that Travis, that alternating bass,
Uh-huh.
and then you'd play a medley with it. And
Oh,
with
that's cool.
You just use your thumb to pick the bass notes, and an alternating bass, you just boom, 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 boom,
Yep.
boom.
Yep.
And
But you add all
the Chet Atkins style.
Yeah, you add
Chet
all the-
Atkins was a Travis picker.
you add all the flair on the higher notes for the most part.
Yeah, you'd throw in the little triplets and the little melody lines, and so I used to do a lot of songs, and I just kind of the last 6 months I said I don't even have an acoustic guitar. I got one, but so I need to buy a decent acoustic guitar and learn how to do that again, because that's probably would be good. To get back at,
Yeah.
to be able to do that again. So,
Did you ever try playing a banjo?
I never picked one up.
Really? Never once?
Nope.
Oh wow.
And it's the same style of picking.
Yeah,
I could probably
figured,
do it.
I figured the finger picking would
I
translate
remember
pretty well.
Bob Johnson had one, and he could pick the heck out of it. And
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever put one on. I never tried it.
Yeah, I'd only tried like a 6-string that was fitted like a guitar.
Okay,
You've seen
yeah.
those, and that's like cheating. That's not even close
They got
to an
the
actual.
4 strings, and they got the 5 string.
Yep. There's a 4-string and a 5-string, but this one was literally just like I don't even know what you want to call it, guitar banjo, like
Okay. Yeah.
because it was just lowest string to highest string, just like a guitar. It was tuned just like a guitar and spaced. And
Okay.
but it's like this isn't a guitar, It's
I don't even know how they tune a banjo. But
Oh.
even a 5 string, I don't even know how they're tuned.
Yeah, I mean, I started recently going on YouTube and watching videos of it, just because I was interested in trying it. I don't know if I want to go buy a banjo though. They're not exactly cheap, and they're not exactly low maintenance. So
It was in the 80s. There was a fella in town, Paul Silva was his name. He used to, I don't know if he was part owner or owner of Gunder Manufacturing.
yeah,
Paul was a musician, had been a musician in town and Paul's been gone now. I don't know when Paul passed away, late 80s, early 90s.
oh okay,
But he was a fiddle player, and so was Alvin Johnson, which would be Bob Johnson's dad.
oh no way,
And it was there was a fellow by the name of Kenny Photo. He was a country musician, but he was a fiddle player. And I was kind of into the bluegrass at that time, and I was doing this finger picking, and I knew a lot of the bluegrass tunes.
yep,
And it was Alvin Johnson had gotten married, and they were having a shivaree out in his farm. It was kind of a surprise party. Well, I was playing with Mike Williams, and Jeff Halverson, I think Scott, and it was Bob. I think Bob Johnson. Anyhow, we were having this big. You're going to have all these musicians out there, and we're playing. Well, it kind of got rained out, and we all kind of wound up in this barn.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this yet. These three guys, it was Alvin and Paul and Kenny Photo, brought out their fiddles, and there was another guy by the name of Lefty Keenest. And
All
he
right.
had a fiddle. And I tell you, that was some of the sweetest music I ever heard. Them guys could just play the heck out of them things.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was amazing. And so I thought I wanted to be a fiddle player.
Yep.
And Paul Siball, he says, yeah, they're just, and he was, I think I mentioned this earlier on. Oops.
Yeah.
Early on this podcast, he was the guy that said there's just too damn many guitar players.
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's
he was the
awesome.
guy who said he says you need to be a bass player, you need to be a fiddle player.
Yeah.
So all right, I went to this auction sale a couple weeks later, and there was this fiddle for sale. So I bought it. He kind of bid on it at first, and then he seen me, I was bidding on it, and he just backed off. And so I got it for about $25. Well, it cost me about another $100 to get. It had two bows, and I got both the bows rehaired, and I got some strings put on it, and some other work. And all of a sudden, I had about $100 in it.
Oh man.
And so I was going to be a fiddle player. Those things aren't as easy as they look.
No. I don't know how does it seem that like somebody goes to pick one of those things up and it's nearly impossible to play, and the only other people you see playing them are absolute professionals. Like there's no middle ground on that at all. It seems
You got to
like.
work. You just got to. And for me, it would take 15, 20 minutes before I can even get any decent tone out of it. And even then, it was like you'd squeak and squawk, and it was like, and it was even I would practice an hour every day, and I kind of even gave up the guitar for a while. And after about 6 months, I said, you know what? It just ain't happening.
Yeah.
And I learned how to do some songs, but
Yeah. Well, that's wild. Yeah, I never had good luck trying to bow a string with any bowed anything. Like it doesn't matter what it was. I couldn't, like you said, I couldn't get the tone to come out of it. And it takes a steady hand to do it. And
and it's Alvin Johnson, Bob's dad. Man, he had fingers like slabs of sausage. I mean, they were just huge. He did big farm hands.
Yep.
And he was a big fella, and he'd just take that fiddle, and it just kind of disappeared when he hold it. He'd get it in his hands, and it was just like, and his hands were huge, and he just got beautiful tone out of that thing, and he just played it so nice.
yeah,
And he just made it so easy looking, and he just like there was no effort at all.
Yeah.
No effort.
I will have to say that like when I first started playing guitar, my excuse was always my fingers are too big. And then, I mean, like the first person someone showed me was Tal Farlow. He's a jazz guitarist. I don't know if you know. Anyways, but yeah, like Tal Farlow's hands were huge too. And it was like, well, if this guy can play this stuff, why can't you? And it's like, oh, I guess that makes sense. So
Yeah, and so I remember like that night, I sat in that barn and I thought, holy cow, this is some of the best sounding music just sitting here. And there was just probably 20, 30 people. There was a keg of beer in there, and the music just kept coming, and it was hard for me to go home that night. And and so that's when I thought I was going to be a fiddle player. Well, like I said, it was, I maybe worked at it a year, maybe.
yeah.
And I just said, no, this ain't happening.
Oh, it's so tough. I mean, I've picked up the ukulele. I'm okay, not great. It's ukulele is another one that I would have to say is it's tough to play good. You can play a ukulele, but it's tough to play that thing good.
I've never. What was it? Somebody I couldn't even remember how to tune one, and somebody said you sing.
My dog has fleas.
My dog has fleas.
Yep.
And she go blah 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 blah.
Yep.
And I says, how do you? Oh, I used to play one of them all the time. She said.
Yeah.
And I don't have one. I never had an interest. Now I've got a couple lap steels.
Oh, nice.
That I bought at auctions,
Yeah.
and I'll play them.
That's always. I've also been mystified by that. It just seems...
And it's. Have you ever sat down on a pedal steel?
No, never once.
That is an instrument. I mean, Jeff Alverson plays one, and I just, you're using both feet.
Yep.
both knees and both hands,
Oh man,
and they're all going at the same time.
that's crazy.
You know, the one foot's on the volume pedal and the other foot's running pedals, and then you got two knee levers.
I guess I didn't know even know there were knee
Or
levers.
sometimes there's, you know, they got a lever on each side of one knee, and and they can just wiggle this knee or just,
Ugh,
and then they got pedals.
that'd be
It just
awesome.
depends on how many necks you got on it and how
Yeah.
many, you know, if it's a 8-string or a 10-string or.
Uh-huh.
But if you ever watch some of them guys that are good play them things,
Yeah.
they just make them hop. I'll
Yeah.
just tell you, they're just like, whoa.
Yeah, Scott Dahl, I want to say, it went live on Facebook with some footage that he had recorded of somebody playing one once, and it was just, you know, it's wild because I don't even know how to process what's going on, and it's not even like it's that much different than a guitar, but it is. It's so much different.
It is. You're using every limb that you got.
Yeah.
You know, you're using you got finger picks, and you got a bar, and you damp, you know, the strings and a bar, and then, like I say, you got your knees going, you got both feet going, and of course that volume gives it the swell, and it goes, that's how they get. And holy cats, that takes some coordination.
Yeah. Do you ever play any of that or no? Or
No. Like I
no.
say, I got the lap steel.
Yep.
Sometimes I struggle with that, keeping the pitch, and I do bottleneck too,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes I struggle with pitch with that. I don't. Sometimes I can nail it, and then the next night I say, that's not good. And
Yeah.
and even the guy say, "No, you're not right, Curry. You're not doing it right." Well, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's why. Some nights I can hear it, some nights I can't.
Yeah.
So.
I got really into the Allman Brothers like 5-6 years ago and was like, oh, I got to learn how to play the slide guitar. And I never got around to it until about a year or two ago. I bought a slide and was like, all right, let's do this. And even just playing a regular slide guitar is more difficult than it looks. Because you think it's just like, oh, it's a flat thing and you just slide it around and everyone's
No,
like.
and a lot of it's the slide. I like them. The
Yeah.
mud slide, the porcelain. I don't know. There's a Stevens slide.
Yeah.
Well, that's for the lap steel.
Yep.
They've got another one. It looks like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's got kind of a rounded end, and that's so you can push it
Okay.
forward and back, and this has got such a sharp edge. You just don't do that with this, or you'll catch the string.
Yep.
You know, if they're sliding, it's not just this way, but they'll play here and they'll dampen the top strings, and they're playing at the lower registers, and then so you watch them guys play, and that's what's great about YouTube.
Yeah.
As you can see how some of these guys are doing. It used to be you had to go watch them. You had to pay to go watch these guys play,
Yeah, and that's another thing. How did you get so good to play these songs when you're in high school and there's no internet around?
You listen to the radio a lot.
Yeah.
Or you bought the LP and you ruined the record because you played it over and over and over and over and over.
Did you do the whole like, okay, we're gonna pitch it all to the right speaker and learn this guy's guitar part, then we'll pitch it all to the left speaker and we'll learn this guy's
No, we'd
guitar
slow it down. If it was a 33 and a third RPM, we'd slow it down to 16 just to get some of the riffs.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then we'd transpose back up to the key when you got done.
Because it would distort it all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, it would but you could get the general progression.
Yeah.
And you would find it on the guitar, and then you'd play it to pitch.
Yeah.
After you learned got the muscle memory down.
Yep.
And then you'd play it to pitch.
Uh-huh. I kind of feel where you're coming from a little bit. I recently joined a metal band and they tab everything out on a software on a computer, and it does the same thing. You can slow it down and play it slower to you. And I had to learn it slower to get the muscle memory down before I could start speeding it up and play into the speeds they wanted to play it. But it's one of those things like that. You say that once you get the muscle memory down, it's just becomes a little bit more second nature, and speeding up's not as big of a challenge as it seemed to be.
No, it's just that, it's that muscle memory thing, and it's funny how get back playing with Static and Rick when we were in high school. We were called Attic, or Rick was in a band called Attic with the other guys, and then I came along and they put the S in it, and then it was static.
Okay.
Anyway, but what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought.
Muscle memory.
Muscle memory. We learned all them rock songs,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, 25, 30 years later, well, we're gonna do these songs again.
Uh huh.
Well, now it's funny how you remember all that stuff. All that
Yeah.
stuff came back.
Really? That's wild.
He says, "Let's do Monster by Steppenwolf." Remember we used to do that? And I said, "Yeah." And we just ripped it right off.
Oh, that's
both of us.
crazy.
The bass player, he didn't. He was kind of familiar with it, and he was enough to carry it through.
Uh huh.
But when we got done, we kind of looked at each other, and it's like, did we just do that? It's been like 30 years since we probably played that song.
Yep.
It was all muscle memory, and it all came back pretty quick.
Uh huh.
Well, we also discovered that we played it the way we played it in high school. It was not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
And so that was a cool thing, was getting back when you're 30 years older. We learned how to do it right.
Yeah.
And then you can make it, then it started to sound like it probably really should have sounded like. We were close when we were in high school.
Yeah.
A lot of it was a lot of noise, but.
Well, I mean, you guys were at the mercy of almost just guessing until you got it right. Am I right? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays you got tabs, and it's like, well, this tab is.
Got tabs, you got YouTube.
80,
you got a
90%
guy on
correct. Sounds
YouTube.
good.
YouTube shows you how to breaks it right down.
Yep.
just
Note
about
by
every
note,
song.
it's
Yep.
following the tabs on the bottom, like karaoke. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that is kind of the blessing of today. But I also feel like since somebody did all that hard work for most people don't even go out and look for that stuff anymore. I mean, there are people that'll go out and find it, but it just. It's kind of difficult when it's like you can learn this song where it's just on Ultimate Guitar. You just type the song name in and you can find it, and people are just like, meh, all right, well.
Yeah, and it was. I gave guitar lessons to a couple kids. It's been 4 or 5 years ago, and they said, "Well, I want to learn how to play this song." I didn't even know what they were even talking about. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not familiar with this song.
Uh huh.
So here we go. Sitting right here. We got the iMac right behind me. We
Yep.
just pop it right up and say, "Okay." Well, it's like, well, what do you need me for? You got one of these at home,
Exactly.
and you can learn it. And
That's one of the issues I'm having because I teach guitar lessons now, and I just teach beginners for the most part. But when they start to learn songs, and it's just like, you don't need me anymore. Like you do to an extent to have somebody to push you, but at the same time, if you can push yourself,
yeah,
I can become
Yeah.
non-existent.
That's when I was 10 years old. After 6 months, learned everything that guy knew.
Yeah,
And he said, "I can't teach you anything more."
yeah. I mean,
and that was the case for him, but because I was, back then it was the Monkees, man. The Monkees are the big band right then in 1965 and
hey,
66.
hey, we're the Monkees. Yep.
I think it was probably, I got the guitar and Christmas of 65, and it was like that fall 66, their TV show came. I think it was 66. Oh yeah, and that's what I wanted to play.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I've learned, I probably even still got the book somewhere that's got the music in it, all their songs.
So it's because of the Monkees that you are hand making amps today.
Think so?
Is that what you're saying? That's what started the ball rolling.
I don't know how I got started on that. It was just, I don't know what got me. I don't know if I got on the internet and I just saw this site and these guys were working on them. I thought, well, that amp right there, that was one I had in high school.
Oh yeah.
It's a Monkey Ward's.
Oh.
It's made by Valco.
Huh.
And I'm thinking about selling it, but anyhow, back to amp buildings, and I don't really know it was just something for me to do. It was just a project. I like projects. So I thought, well, I can build that. I'd like to build something that I could use.
Uh-huh.
And, what's behind you, that's what I use in my gigs. That's how I sold my Fender Twin.
That's really wild. Is there
the Fender Twin is a great amp, but the one behind you, that's a copy of a 58 Bassman.
Nice.
And it's got the 4 10-inch speakers in it. And it does. I reconed the speakers. I had 4 blown 10-inch. Actually, I had about 12 10-inch Fender speakers, and they're all in various shapes of not very good.
Mm-hmm.
and I reconed all the speakers.
That's cool too.
And I bought the chassis that you mount all the components in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you buy the components, but I mounted the tube sockets, and you wire up the tube sockets to the transformers and the sockets, and then they come to another transformer, and you put it all together, and hopefully it works.
Yeah.
Now that one worked right up front. I had a couple cold solder joints in it that I had to get in and redo, but
Yep.
I've got a Marshall 18 watt. I think I posted that on Facebook that I'm working on.
Yep.
I love that amp. It was a great sounding amp. I'd used it for probably 8 or 10 years.
Nice.
I had a gig last summer. I had it, and I got a copy of a Fender Tweed, like a 53 or 55 Tweed amp. It's just a copy of it. It's like a 12 or 15 watts, and I was using it in that 18 watt. And you get that. It was up at the VFW. You get a nice grind and not get very loud.
Mm-hmm.
You're not.
That's the blessing of the small watt amp.
Yep.
Yep. You don't have to blow everyone's eardrums out.
And
to
you get
good
a
tone.
you just get that. It just starts getting pretty smooth. At a good, a decent volume, or not a loud volume. So anyway, we're playing along. We're about into the second set, probably getting towards the end of the night, and all of a sudden I just got pure hiss static out of that thing. Shut it off, and I have yet to figure out what's wrong with that
Oh,
thing.
man.
I have replaced components. I'm down to the point where I'm just going to strip it right. I think I've got a bad solder joint somewhere that's on the back side of a board somewhere, and I got to completely tear it all apart to get at it. And I put a scope on it, and the last couple weeks ago, and then I got busy with a couple other guys' amps, and I haven't been back to it, but I think I know where it's at, I think. So anyway, shut this off.
Oh, that's totally cool. Do you have any shows coming up anytime soon? Because you're currently in Nedd Freeley.
Yeah, I think we're going to have, so far we got like 3 or 4. I don't know when, either April, is our first April or May.
All right. I'm sure it's on your Facebook, and if it's not, it will be soon.
It will be soon.
All right. So I'll put a link to your Facebook in the description down below.
Yeah, they usually tell me, we got this coming up in a month. We got to, we need to get, and we rehearse. In fact, that's what my phone's dinging about. I see the guys are wanting to set up for tomorrow night.
That's good deal. I'm kind of, I don't know if you're kind of like me, where like I know we're playing shows, and I know when we play them, but I don't ever just like burn it in my head to be like, this day at this time at this place we need to be here.
Well, see, these were all booked probably 4, 5, 6 months ago.
Yeah,
for next year.
Yep,
and we keep saying, well, yeah, we can do it if I'm alive, I'll be there. And
oh man.
Well, one of the guys is 80.
Oh yeah.
And the other guy is 75.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack, I think, is 65 or 6. I'm 63.
Yeah.
So, that's what, we played at the VFW last November. Well, they wanted to hire us, I think it's next June and next November.
Nice.
In 2019.
Yep.
In fact, Scott told me, he says, they want us to play November 20th. And I says, well, today's the 21st. And he says, no, this is for next year.
Oh, my gosh. They're booking you 364 days out.
Something like, it was, I thought, well, yeah, if I'm still around, I'll be there. So, if everybody else will be there, I'll be there too. So.
Yeah. Do you ever make it out to any jam nights or anything like that?
I haven't. Scott asked, he's had a couple up at the Red Lantern.
Yep.
I may try to make one. I don't know. Yeah. I did enough jams in my life. That, they're fun. I remember going up to Havelock. They used to do that, once a month. I think in all the years, 7, 8 years they did it, I think I made it twice. Had a blast both times I did it.
Yeah.
I was one of the founding members of the Lizard Creek Blues Society,
All right.
and I was always in charge of jams.
Uh-huh.
And for I don't know, 3 years, we had jams, and we had a traveling jam show. I tell you what, we played.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and gosh, I remember playing Main Street of Fort Dodge. Remember playing. Was it the Eagles Club down in Fort Dodge? Is that up on the third floor of
Yeah,
First Avenue North? Or?
Yeah, they got a Eagles. I think the Eagles Club is second floor, and they call it the ballroom on the top floor.
Yeah,
But
there's
the
a ballroom.
Yeah, that's awesome up there.
We jammed up there a couple of times, just mainly because we needed a place to practice. We practiced at Dr. Dayton's garage. He had a workshop over there by Troy Waller Auto Body. It was behind. We practiced. We jammed in there, and we came up to the Knotty Pine. We'd have the Fine
Nice.
Pine Jam, and we just
that's
absolutely
cool.
packed that stinking
Oh yeah.
place. You know?
Oh man, I could
Of course,
just
it'd
imagine.
take 35 people would pack it. But,
Yeah, well.
but it, and we'd just pack the place. And Eric Covey would always show up, and then there was a couple other. I played guitar. Don Wagner would play bass. Scott would play drums. Eric Covey's drummer. Oh shoot, can't think of his name. He's the optometrist down in Fort Dodge. Jeff Foreman
Okay.
would show up. Dr. Dayton was a good guitar player. There was a couple other guitar players. Sometime Eric Covey had a harp player that came up from Missouri that would play with us once in a while. Holy smokes, could he play that harp? But yeah, and I did that for 2 or 3 years, and it was throw all my stuff in the back of the truck. Of course, I had all the sound equipment. I had the PB equipment, and all that, and I had the bass bins, and I'd throw her all in the truck,
Oof.
load her all up, unpack it, set it up, tear it down, pack it up, unload, and I got burned out on that.
Unloading when you get home is the hardest part.
Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea how many times I've just wanted to leave all my stuff in my car overnight.
There was times I just grabbed my guitars and the rest of it sat in the
Yep,
truck.
I've done it. I've left the speaker cabs is usually what I end up leaving in the car if I leave something. I'm scared to leave an amp outside. I don't know if how cold it's going to get. I don't want condensation to get all over the board and stuff.
That's an issue. I've had that happen when you had an amp get really cold and you bring it into a warm building and all of a sudden you turn it on and it's, it draws, thing is, it's in a warm house. You take it out and it gets cold and you put the cover over it and you trap the moisture inside there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the tubes are all wet.
Yep.
And you got wet sockets, you got wet connections, you got wet jacks, and all of a sudden you got buzzes, hums, pops, and
smoke and fire and who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, you have anything else going on other than Nedd Freeley right now?
Like I said, Artie Dean.
Oh yeah,
classmate of mine. He shows up. Last summer. Here, I got a picture. There was, what do we call it? Artie Dean and North Iowa All Stars. Or something
yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. You guys made it up to Byron's, is that right?
Yeah, we were at Byron's that night.
Oh, that's
a picture
cool.
Byron took that picture of us.
Byron's such a cool guy.
Yeah, it is. It's a different venue, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's, but it...
He gives away door prizes. That's probably my favorite.
God,
dude,
yes.
That's my favorite part. I won like a 3-foot-long bubble wand the first time I was there, and then I won a 3-prong outlet adapter.
Yeah, the 3-way. 1-way or 2-way, or is it a 3-way?
I love it. Oh, that place is so funny to go to.
That night was a disaster for me. I had that 12-watt amp, and I had my Leslie there.
Uh-huh.
We played 2 nights in a row. We played at the VFW, and then the next night we played at Byron's.
Yep.
And everything worked great. We did great. And the harp player and that one guitar player I hadn't played with, they came up from Des Moines. One was J.D. Flanagan was a harp player, and I hadn't seen J.D. in 40 years.
Oh, wow.
He used to play with Gunshaw.
Oh, cool.
And so was this guitar player, and I can't think of his name. Well, he and JD lived down Des Moines. Well, I already got a hold of him. Hell, and JD, yeah, he used to be a good front man, but I heard he got to drinking so bad that you didn't know what was going to happen.
Sometimes that's fun though.
And Artie says, well, I told him, he says, you get drinking too much, you're just going home. But he did fantastic. And we
good.
played up at the VFW and we pulled it off and it sounded great.
Yeah, I heard
All
that VFW show was awesome.
All my stuff worked great. We sounded great. I get over to Byron's and I always had a spare amp. I had my Silvertone amp and I had my 12-watt Tweed, and then I had my Vibratone.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't one piece worked.
Oh.
The Vibratone didn't turn on. The one amp, nothing. Dead. Nothing. Well, I had the Silvertone, and it's about a 12-watt amp. I could get that. It didn't work. And Eric says, well, I've got a Blues Junior in my, he says, you can use that. Well, I used it. It worked, but I couldn't get a tone out of that thing. It just sounded awful. I just was not comfortable all night.
That's the weird give and take. You buy a newer amp and it doesn't sound like the old amps, but it's guaranteed to work, and then you flip flop it, and sometimes them older boutique amps just don't last as long. They're expensive to upkeep, and
it's, and it was all those amps that I had. Well, come to find out, the Silvertone, I had the power cord wrapped around, and then it pulled the tube out, and I didn't even see that.
Oh,
well,
man.
in my haste and frantic hurry, and all of a sudden, I'm on my second amp, and it don't work. Now
gosh.
what? And it's like, we're going to start in 5 minutes, and I don't have an amp to play through.
Oh, man.
Crap, I'm just going to go home. And I was really getting... So, yeah, and a lot of it was haste. But then again, those two pieces, I've been using them for 10 years, been dragging around, bouncing around in a truck.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of things had come loose in that, and the drum got jammed. It come loose, the screws pulled out of the wood, and
Oh, man.
And the drum was jammed up against in there, and it didn't spin. So no, I didn't get the warble.
Yep.
And the other one, I had a cold solder joint, and it finally let loose and deader than a doornail.
Yep. I mean, the cold solder joint was something I never really found too much of until someone's like, oh, my input jack on my guitar doesn't work, and they bring it to you, and it's like an $80 Chinese guitar, and it's like, oh, cold solder joint, because it just popped right off, like all the solder and everything, and it happens.
Yeah, and they look good, and that's a whole art, soldering, and then they got this low lead solder now, and that's why I've got probably it's incorrect, but it's got the lead. It works good, and it's an art.
Oh yeah,
Definite art.
I'm glad I started doing it just so I can at least repair some of my own stuff now.
You get it clean. Use a clean flux. Use a good solder.
Yep.
Clean tip, and you'll eliminate your problems.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the hardest things to learn was actually cleaning your tip off because it's just like, how come the solder isn't sticking to this? And it's like, oh, looks nasty. And like, you can just clean it. And I was like, all right, sweet. Then
away you go.
Yep, away you go.
You got a clean tip, and I do change tips because they wear out.
Yeah, something else I didn't realize. I bought a cheap soldering gun, and the cheap tip, of course, wears out. So then I bought a nice one. It has a nice tip that lasted so much longer. As a matter of fact, I still have both of them, and I've used the one 20 times more than the other one. It still looks better. So
anyway, I play with Artie. Who knows what Artie? I don't know if you're familiar with Artie, but he's not to drop names, but he plays with music makers.
Okay.
The music maker, he's got a thing on Facebook, and they've got a web page, and all these old blues players and down south, and he'll travel them. They go to Europe, and he plays with Taj Mahal, and he's played with a lot of big name guys.
Yeah.
He's engineered some recording for Taj Mahal's last record.
Oh, that's crazy.
And anyhow, like I said, Artie's a classmate, fantastic drummer.
Yeah.
Just, crazy. Just got a snare, big old calfskin drum. You can see in that picture, he's got a light in it. You got to have a light to heat up that skin.
Uh-huh.
And a floor tom. And that's it.
Well, that's crazy cool.
Maybe a cymbal and a hi-hat. That's all he uses.
That's nice. I mean,
and he keeps it simple. And
sometimes that's good though. You can find guys with super big kits, and sometimes they don't even hit everything.
Yeah, and so yeah, when he left there at Thanksgiving, he emailed me or texted me a week later. I'm planning on something for next summer. Planning on something. So I don't know what he's got in mind. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen there.
That's
he
awesome.
said, I says, well, just give me a time frame. He says, well, the first week or so of August.
All right. So you think that's going to be around Byron's again, or do you think it's just going to be somewhere around the Midwest, or?
I really don't know with Artie. Artie's got a lot of connections. So
yeah.
He's played in Mississippi Valley Blues Fest. He's played Des Moines a lot.
Yep.
Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Well, we've gone past an hour here, so.
And you're free to edit any of it because I rambled.
Oh no, it's perfect. I'd rather have somebody ramble than not say anything because I've had those too.
I'm good at rambling.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have you back on to ramble some more, maybe this summer, and talk about that show.
Yeah, like I said, I couldn't answer all your questions about amps, but how I got interested in it, I don't know. It's just like the guitar.
Yeah.
You just get started and.
Yeah, just kind of runaway hobby and.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how all that works.
Yeah.
You get started and you kind of like it, so you do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, man. It was great to sit and talk.
It was great.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. I'll have to make sure I listen to all your podcasts now.
Yeah.
I probably won't listen to mine because I'll probably bore myself to death. But
it is kind of weird listening to your own podcast. I mean, all of them are kind of half my podcast because I'm the interviewee or interviewer, but it's a little weird hearing your own voice.
Well, I'm interested in it because you hear everybody's perspective or what their history. That's a great part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to pull too many super opinionated opinions out of people, but I still want to know where they're coming from and why they think the way they do, and like why did you choose this kind of music, and why do you like these guitars, and like, where do you play, and why do you choose to play those shows, and everybody's justified in their thoughts. I mean, I love it. I love talking to everybody about this.
And it doesn't matter if that's what they like to do. Man, do it. Just
exactly.
Do it well. That's the best part. That's the main part. It's just if you're going to do it well. Just go out there and nail it.
I'm going to end it on that. That's perfect. Thanks, Steve.
Right.
I really appreciate it. All right. Episode number 21 is in the bank. Big thanks to Steve Curry for doing the podcast with me this week. We had talked about doing one. We were hoping to get one closer to a show date, but we squeezed one in right now because you know what? Why not? It's really neat to get to hear him talk about all of his different bands that he's been in, what he's currently doing with the Nedd Freeley Funn Band. I mean, that's got to be some cool stuff there. I wish I've seen them. I have not, unfortunately, but I've interviewed a couple of guys in the band, and I mean, they're stacked. They got a great lineup of guys. I want to go see him sometime soon. So if you want to go see the Nedd Freeley Funn Band, hit me up. I'll go with you to a show. That'll be a good time. It was also really cool to hear about him building those amps. I mean, that's wild stuff if you ask me. It's probably not super crazy to some people out there, but man, that's nuts. I mean, who builds your TV? How do you know how to build a TV? I don't know. This guy's out there building guitar amps and stuff. It's nuts. And he's talking about tearing apart organs and building amps out of organs, and it's wild. That's crazy. It's super cool. This is the kind of stuff that I hope to bring to the podcast as much as possible. Just people that have these really interesting stories, even if they don't directly revolve around playing music. I mean, I could probably sit down and do a podcast with them just talking about amps over and over and over again. I mean, that was tons of fun. Gear talk's not always fun to everybody, but I think he did a pretty good job of talking about like the rotary speaker and how it works, and it's kind of neat to hear all that stuff because I mean that's more stuff that like I thought I knew how it worked, and I guess I didn't really know how it worked, and I learned something while doing the podcast, and so it's a fun outing for me, and it was a fun outing for everybody involved. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks everybody for listening. This is episode number 21, and I'm out of here. Peace.